Welcome to the Our State Book Club podcast. I'm your host, New York Times bestselling author and North Carolina native Wiley Cash. In today's episode, we return to the rural community of Clover Garden, where beloved writer and musician Bland Simpson has lived for 50 years. Today, we'll discuss his latest book, Clover Garden, a Carolinian's Piedmont memoir, and we'll talk about the spirit of this special place and what's kept him so close to home. Bland, thanks again for joining us.
Oh, sure, Wiley.
So, in the last episode, we kind of closed out talking a lot about music. And you lived in New York City for a while, and then you learned that it was more affordable to live in North Carolina and then travel to New York City when you had to do studio time or perform. And you moved here to Clover Garden. How did you find Clover Garden? And how did you end up finding that you wanted to live here?
Okay, first, somebody told me that Eric and Miggy Shopler, they lived about a mile from where you and I sit, and somebody told me that they had a little cabin for rent, and I came to see the cabin. I had never been in this part of Orange County.
Wow.
All those years
you lived here.
I'd never been in extreme southwest Orange County. So I came out here, got the cabin, lived, and thought I'd live there maybe a year or so and go back to New York and do a show. And that kind of happened, but I didn't stop living here. Mm-hmm. I just did what Ed Freeman suggested, come to New York when you need to. And I still didn't think it would be all that long, but, you know, the weeks turned into years. Yes. And as John Lennon said, life, it's what happens while you're making other plans.
Yes.
So I just stayed on and wrote a book about country music, first book I wrote and published, and Max Steele at Carolina invited me to teach for a semester. And I said, sure.
That semester had some long legs.
And he kept telling me, as he kept hiring me, he said, this is not going to amount to anything. And I said, it's fine, it's working for me. It's a nice paycheck, and I got to live where I was living out here in the country. And it did work out, and it's not a long ride. It's only 13 minutes from where we sit to
which is amazing
Carrboro.
To know what Carrboro feels like and to be so close to Carrboro. But then, I mean, I can't hear anything out here. You know, it's so peaceful. It's so quiet. It feels so apart from everything.
Well, we'll sit you out on the deck a little later on, and you'll hear so many barred owls.
That's what I'm talking. I can't hear the town is what I'm saying. I can't hear cars, can't hear the town. I can't hear anything except what's supposed to be here. You know, it's really
and some
wonderful.
things that aren't supposed to. I wish the coyotes were still in Colorado.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, man.
I'm sure.
I don't like it that they come down and eat the persimmons 75 yards from where we sit.
We'll be right back with Bland Simpson. If you're enjoying this conversation with Bland Simpson, please join Bland, me, and our friend Clyde Edgerton for an evening of North Carolina literature and music on the evening of Thursday, June 26, at the Barn at Farrington Village in Pittsburgh, North Carolina. Books will be available to purchase from McIntyre's Books. You can find out more and get tickets at ourstate.com/trips. This podcast is produced by Our State Magazine, celebrating North Carolina travel, food, history, and culture since 1933. Check out ourstate.com, where you can explore exclusive content like digital stories, YouTube videos, newsletters, and more. To have each month's issue delivered to your mailbox, visit ourstate.com/subscribe and enter promo code Book Club, one word, Book Club. That's BOOKCLUB for $5 off any regular or gift subscription. We are back with Bland Simpson. So, Bland, your new book, Clover Garden, is really an ethnography, a history, a cultural, natural study of this place. And before we went to break, you talked about how from your vantage point on this piece of property, you can kind of track the seasons. What is the experience of that like? Because so few of us in our daily lives are able to engage with the natural world in a way that we can mark the changing of seasons beyond, well, I need a coat today, or I need to take my umbrella today. But you really mark the changing of seasons. What is that experience like?
It's a lot of fun. Have long been in love with the redbud. Mm-hmm. And I remarked somewhere that I would, if there were a church of the redbud, I would sign up immediately. Yeah. It was my grandfather's favorite flowering tree. Mm. And he never told me why, but I think I know why. And that is, it's about the earliest tree to flower. Mm. And when he was coming up on a one mule farm down in Onslow County, when you saw the redbud, spring was here. You weren't going to have to split wood every day to keep the house warm. And, it was a liberation. Yeah. And it helps, of course, that it's absolutely beautiful. Yeah. And it frequently dots the edges of fields and forests. So I've always looked forward to that, and it always comes right about this time, mid-March. And so it's all the excitement that's going on right now. And what other things happen? Oh, the owls have their young at a different time of year, and then hawks, when the hawks have their young and the woods get more hawky, then here come the crows to chase them away. That's been going on here the last couple of weeks.
So a lot of this stuff is the kind of activity you witness in the daytime. And earlier last year, I think it was in October, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe November, we featured a book by a friend of mine named Leanne Henyon called Night Magic that Algonquin put out. And it was about exploring the natural world at night and the things that we don't see because of light pollution. And I imagine you do experience light pollution here, but not to the degree that you would in Carver or Chapel Hill. What is nighttime like out here?
The stars are much more vivid than they are just 5 or 6 miles to the east. We can see the light domes, but they're fairly faint. Hillsborough, Chapel Hill, Graham and Burlington, we get a lot of stars. Yeah. Even so, the Milky Way is often more discreet than it used to be when I was a boy. We could see the Milky Way easily, and we could see everything I could see out here in Glen Lennox in town. I'm very glad there's a dark sky movement. Yeah. It's a wonderful thing. And because we all ought to be able to see.
And animals need that dark sky.
Animals need
it. Especially the birds.
We need it.
Yeah.
And, it's a large part of our cultural heritage is to see what the ancient ones saw and what they imagined was happening with them because of what was happening up there.
Absolutely.
So, and we do have some wonderful places in this state, out on the coast, out on the eastern part of the Albemarle-Pamlico Peninsula, on the Outer Banks, Core Banks, and there's some spots up near, I think, maybe Mars Hill in the mountains. But there are places you can be guaranteed that that privilege if you go to them. But it's been really nice to have as much freedom in the skies as we have here.
So when I think about books about the natural world, or when our general reader thinks of books about the natural world, we inevitably think of Walden, the Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, Desert Solitaire. And these are all, foundational, important text. But none of those authors have lived in a place as long as you've lived here in Clover Garden. But I imagine, and I think we talked about, those books were still models for you, at least subconsciously, in writing Clover Garden. But when you're writing about landscape and you're writing about the natural world, especially given the depth of your experience here, what kind of things are you looking for in particular to really base an idea on, or a story on, or a narrative, or an image? Like, what is your writer antenna doing when you're sitting down to work on an essay?
Well, we make lists.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lot of older friends, men who were in their 50s to 80s when I moved out here, and I was 26 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
And they told stories. They lived stories, some of them fairly ridiculous. And I, like you, perhaps, I'd like to write down funny things that you observe or hear about. But what I overall wanted to do was capture or catch up a portrait in time. And of course, it's 50 years of time.
Mm-hmm.
But the people I've known and what I've seen happen here, some of the big changes like the dairies going out, and just learning about what the people do on a dairy farm, what the tasks are, and that sort of thing.
And also hunting dogs.
And the hunting dogs, I was fascinated, and I totally defied the collective wisdom that you can't make a pet out of a coon dog. I said, well, it's kind of like driving a car on sand. People say you're going to get stuck. You think that applies to everybody except me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to get stuck in the sand, which I certainly have. Or my coon dog's going to be a lovable pet.
Yeah.
Lovable in a slightly unusual way. Coon dogs are, especially the 100-pounder that I had, it's kind of like livestock.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to catch what a rural community, a coherent rural community in North Carolina at this time was and is like. And there are some straight up economic motives there. Our largest industry in the state of North Carolina at this time is agriculture.
Yes.
And and it's huge. It's we have the military budget in North Carolina is a big part of our economy. Tourism is a big part, but agriculture is as much as those things and a lot else more combined. This is our prize piece of the economy. So I think one of the big issues that we're facing as the state careens towards 12 million people approximately in 2030 is farmland preservation. And native plants which supply native birds and pollinator insects and all that. So it's several different angles on farmland preservation. Yeah. But it's a big deal. And I thought, well, if I can show the good side of rural life, maybe that'll help a little bit.
And an important thing to remember. Absolutely. Well, we are going to close out with the segment that we haven't officially titled it yet, but I'll call it the Writer's Bookshelf. And if you could share with us just a couple of books, 2 or 3 books that have either had a huge impact on you as a writer or as a thinker or a teacher, or just maybe a book that you've particularly enjoyed lately. Like what's on your shelf or your nightstand?
Mel Rio, M.L. Rio, is a very good friend of our younger daughters, and we know her quite well. And she's stayed here and whatnot. She's got a new novella out called A Graveyard Shift. And she had a great success with a book called If We Were Villains, or out of the gate. Mel's a great Shakespearean scholar, and she was in my playwriting class. And she wrote a scene. It's just supposed to be a short scene, 2 or 3 people. And she wrote a scene of young actors waiting around to audition. And you see their different competitions and so forth. And she expanded that into If We Were Villains, and that had a terrific success with it. And, and then it got a second wind, and her publisher wanted a novella, so she came up with this Graveyard Shift. It's about a bunch of people who go to the cemetery to smoke during their night shift, late night people, and all the intrigue that goes on with that. So I read that recently and had a great time because it's all modeled on locations in Chapel Hill. That's
super cool.
I'm reading a self-published book right this second called It's Not the Dirt. And this was written by the father, active fisherman and hunter from down east, father of a student recent student of mine, and it's wonderful recollections of growing up, learning to hunt from friends and grandfather. And Bill Fentress is not a professional writer, but he was moved. He felt the lyric impulse.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And he was moved to write these recollections.
And what an important thing to have for his family.
Yes,
to have forever.
And his daughter Sarah gave the title because he's writing about very physical landscapes down east, and it's really the people.
Yeah,
and she said it's not the dirt.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great title.
And I don't know. I go back to Walden all the time.
Sure.
And Annie Dillard is a friend. She's haunted Hillsborough a lot over the years, and she spoke to our students one day, and she read a passage about the incineration of a moth. The moth had gotten into the Coleman lantern, and it is so detailed about what the fire is doing every millisecond to the body of this moth. And somebody asked, did you, it's from a camping trip, they said, did you write that while you were watching the moth immolate? And she said, no, I think I just wrote moth got in the lantern and burned up. And how she teased out the and literally illuminated the experience of that insect in a highly imaginative way.
Yeah, and that's the importance of taking notes and carrying that notebook.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because she had it, even though it was just
it stuck on her brain.
Fact.
Yeah.
It gave her inspiration to dramatize. And,
sure. Yeah.
So stuff that does that, notes that do that, and other writers who show how far you can go.
Sure. Well, Bland, this has been just a joy. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you
for us and for me.
Thank you very much for the notice.
What might it be like underneath the sunrise in a state of flight? Coming back on me, it seems wonderful, the wandering mountain birds on a beach. Never moments ever wasted, turning away from your love. Honeybees, gardens of sweeter fruit, never tasted, no turning to other things. Will you be, will you seem, sweeter fruit, never tasted, don't turn your back on me. Mountains pushing into the sea.